Makaya McCraven is a gift to modern jazz music, just like Gil Scott-Heron was a gift to music in general. In this video I will tell you a bit about Gil Scott-Heron, the whole I'm New Here project, and how Makaya McCraven reworked it in 2020. If you're new here, okay, we're all new here, right, please subscribe to my channel for more independent music videos. So at first you might know Gil Scott-Heron because he's one of the first people who have ever used rapping technique at the beginning of the 70s, and he's perhaps the most famous out of those who did that. Out of the fun facts, his mom was an opera singer and his dad was a Jamaican, and the first black soccer player for Celtic Glasgow in UK. It's a famous soccer club here in Europe. Gil Scott-Heron was a musician, of course, but also literature teacher at college. And he was also a poet who sang about social issues, because all this spoken word, jazz poetry, rap scene at the end of 60s, beginning of the 70s, consisted of mostly educated African American people who were activists in those times. An anecdote that might show you what type of character he was is when he was accepted for a scholarship in one of the poshest schools in New York, as literally one of 5 black students over there. Teacher asked him, how would you feel if one day you went to the subway and you saw your classmate coming out of limousine? And he replied, the same as you would feel, because you also can't afford a limousine. However, I'm New Here is less political and more personal. He recorded it between 2007 and 2009 when he was HIV positive, and this album came out in 2010, which is 16 years after his previous release, and the artist passed away only 1 year later, so it was something like Black Star for David Bowie. Original album was under 30 minutes long, short, and consisted of raw stories like he would tell you at the bar. It had suffocating atmosphere that was as much blues as it was trip-hop, sometimes only with the sound of acoustic guitar or a piano, sometimes with electronic background. Electronic part was not very disturbing, it was dark and minimalistic, regardless of whichever genre they were actually working on at that moment. It was connected by this deep, elderly voice of Gil Scott-Heron. Chicago Tribune called it postmodern blues album, which I think is the best description that I've seen. My favorite songs were I'm New Here and New York is Killing Me. You can definitely feel pain, sorrow when you listen, and it feels like you're very close to the performer. It's like a man who's been through a lot is speaking to you directly. The album has this interesting effect that it sounds both like it was made in the 50s and it also sounds contemporary. Great work of the producers and people who had this idea. The producer of this album was Richard Russell from the famous Excel Recordings. And fun fact, Damon Albarn played keyboards. Then in 2011, Jamie XX did an album with remixes. As much as I like this album, and I think Jamie proved he's a creative producer, sometimes it felt Gil Scott-Heron's story was redundant in those beats. However, sometimes they met at one point. For example, the end of the album was very good. I think New York is Killing Me in that version was fantastic. I still like that album more for Jamie XX beats and ideas, rather than for finding the original spirit. It showed up only in a few moments. Also, I don't think Gil Scott-Heron's fans really like Jamie XX and music like that, music like he makes. So finally now Richard Russell asked Makaya McCraven to redo this album through his sensitivity, and it looks like a match made for the same audience. I've got a feeling they wanted to bring even more fame to Excel Recordings through the already acclaimed material to recycle it. Makaya McCraven's a new generation jazz drummer, producer, band leader. His dad is also an American jazz drummer and his mom is a Hungarian avant folk singer. One thing I appreciate him for is he doesn't delete subpar material. Even over the length of really long material, there's nothing like really cringeworthy. It's actually pretty decent. I think his stuff is accessible enough for regular music fans, and also jazz fans like me don't really have anything to bitch about. So all in all, I did have some expectations for this work, and the first thing I've noticed is he redefines this music into a soul jazz mode, which is actually the closest to Gil Scott-Heron's origins. It's like this blues source material was not the real Gil Scott-Heron we used to know from the past. This one actually sounds more like him. My favorite moments are those with underlined drumming and containing all those more modern elements. For example, the song Running. Also, Where Did the Night Go has a strong flute line, which I like. which is popular in both new jazz and in Gil Scott-Heron's music, like for example in his old hit The Bottle. I wish there were more new jazz solutions, because Makaya McCraven is a producer and he clearly knows how to use new jazz. It's not so obvious for everyone who tries to do that. I'm a little disappointed with those famous songs. I'm New Here and I'll Take Care of You sound overly nostalgic. Original material was more raw, but still the source material is so strong, and the whole album is not one-dimensional, so it's less of a problem. New York Is Killing Me is very jazzy, bluesy, like straight up from live performance from the beginning of the 60s. Sounds like something between John Lee Hooker and Ray Charles. I like it, I really like it. However, I think Jamie XX made a perfect version of this song for me. And of course it's much different. I'm not sure. Now, I have my favorite moments on each of those albums. Here, Running, Where Did the Night Go, and Me and the Devil, the song that closes the album. I think top moments are the strongest on the original and the remix version. That's why I rated them both very high for those peak moments. But this rework by Makaya McCraven is the most coherent. I can't say that my heart stopped for a moment when I was listening to this, but at the same time quality is not disputable, especially when it's so hard to get good jazz these days. And especially that I know that this album will stand out in 2020 among other albums from other genres, simply because it will be different than anything else. So I know that I will put it somewhere on my list simply because it will be different than anything else. Moreover, it might be even my favorite work from Makaya McCraven. Like I said, he's the guy who keeps the level, he doesn't really sing, but here I think the average is the highest. Obviously thanks to the source material, but also thanks to his individual understanding of what Gil Scott-Heron's music was. And this is something that, for example, Jamie XX completely disregarded.